You see, physical touch is not just about closeness. It's not simply a gesture or a habit. It is a language, an ancient nonverbal dialogue that speaks directly to the emotional and biological core of a man. The body knows things long before the conscious mind ever catches up. And when you engage with someone physically, you're entering into a space of vulnerability, trust, and primal memory. If you do it right, you don't just touch the skin, you stir something deeper, you activate chemical responses, oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, the neurochemical cocktail that speaks the language of love, safety, and bonding. Start with the small and sincere. A gentle touch on the arm in a moment of laughter or while passing by in the kitchen. It seems like nothing, but it disarms. It signals safety, familiarity. It reminds the nervous system that it's okay to be calm, that you're not a threat, but rather a refuge. This is how trust is built, slowly in the subtleties. Then there's the kind of touch that happens when he's speaking about something that matters to him, something he's proud of, or something that weighs heavy on his chest. A hand placed lightly on his back or brushing your fingers against his while he talks. These gestures say, "I'm here. I see you." They tell him he doesn't have to carry the whole world alone. In that moment, his body reads that as emotional safety. And the more a man feels safe around you, the more he lets his guard down and the more love flows naturally from him. There's also the kind of physical contact that happens in moments of celebration. A hug that's just a little tighter, a little longer, that lingering squeeze that doesn't rush to let go. This kind of touch tells his subconscious that joy is shared here, that success is not a solitary thing. It creates an emotional anchor. Every time he wins, part of him wants to celebrate with you because on some level, it doesn't feel complete unless he does. Don't overlook the power of touch during rest. A simple act like running your fingers through his hair while he's lying down or massaging the back of his neck after a long day. It's primal, comforting, and beyond words, it tells him you're allowed to relax here. In a world where men are often expected to be alert, to carry the burden, to be strong, this kind of nurturing touch is like a balm to the soul. Spontaneity matters too, a sudden hug from behind, holding his hand in public without saying a word. These small acts of affection, when they come unannounced, carry a surprising weight because they're not expected, they're not transactional, they feel earned, not given. And that activates something deeper than desire. It activates loyalty, the sense of being chosen, the sense of mattering. Finally, there's intimacy, but not in the way the world has commercialized it. True intimacy is slow, it's intentional. It's not just about desire, it's about connection, eye contact, breath in sync, the rhythm of two people who aren't just satisfying urges, but creating something transcendent. And when touch becomes a form of communication, not just a means to an end, it becomes sacred. That's when real love hormones flood the system. That's when the heart opens wide and the soul says, "This is home." So don't underestimate physical touch. It is, when used with care and intention, one of the most powerful tools you have to speak directly to the emotional center of a man. Not to manipulate, not to control, but to connect, to awaken, to build something that goes far deeper than words ever could. A subtle, everyday touch might seem insignificant at first glance, but in truth, it plays a foundational role in how emotional bonds are formed and maintained. When you reach out and gently touch a man's arm, as you walk past him in the kitchen or brush against his shoulder while handing him something, you're communicating something far deeper than surface contact. You're saying, without words, "I see you, I acknowledge you, I'm comfortable with you." That kind of physical reassurance, though small, works on a deep psychological level. It tells his nervous system to calm down. It activates oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, in just enough of a dose to leave an imprint. Men, especially those who've been conditioned to guard their emotions, often respond more openly to subtle physical gestures than they do to verbal reassurances. A soft hand on the back during a moment of silence, or a brief squeeze of the hand when he's focused or distracted, has the power to interrupt patterns of tension without forcing conversation. That kind of touch doesn't demand anything. It doesn't rush. It just reassures. It tells his body that the environment is safe, that he doesn't have to be hyper alert, that he's not alone. The reason this works is rooted in biology. From infancy, humans are wired to seek touch as a way to feel secure. Physical closeness activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the one responsible for rest and restoration. Over time, when these small touches are consistently present in a relationship, the body begins to associate the presence of that person with peace. With home, it's the repetition that matters. One kind gesture doesn't do it, but a pattern of subtle, everyday affection becomes the emotional equivalent of shelter. That's why it's important not to underestimate the value of these brief interactions. They're not throwaway gestures. They accumulate quietly like drops in a reservoir. You don't need grand displays of passion every single day. In fact, what builds long-term connection is often the opposite. It's in the unnoticed, almost unconscious ways you reach for each other. When you do it consistently, his subconscious begins to trust the emotional environment you're creating. Over time, even just the expectation of your touch, your nearness, becomes soothing. There's something deeply grounding about knowing someone is near and that they reach for you not only when things are dramatic, not only when emotions are high, but simply because they care, because you matter. That's what these touches communicate. They show up in moments that don't demand anything, and that's when they're most powerful, when they come not from necessity, but from a quiet, steady presence. That's where real emotional depth begins. These small touches also signal mutual comfort. You're telling him not just that he's safe, but that you're safe with him, that you trust the space between you, that there's no tension in reaching out, no calculation. It's normal, it's natural, it's effortless. And when he starts to feel that in his body, not just in his mind, but in his actual physical experience, love begins to settle in. Not the kind of love that bursts loudly, but the kind that grows roots. It becomes familiar, stable. It feels like coming home to something solid. And in a world where so many men are taught to live on guard, to be careful, to withhold emotion until it's safe, your touch can be the thing that disarms all of that. Not instantly, not dramatically, but gently over time. That's how powerful, subtle, everyday touch really is. It bypasses the walls the world told him to build, and it whispers to something deeper, something honest. When a man is opening up, speaking about something personal, painful, or deeply meaningful, he's stepping into a space of vulnerability that doesn't always come naturally to him, especially in a world that teaches men to stay composed, stoic, and solution-focused. Expressing emotions out loud can feel risky. It's during these moments, when his internal walls are just beginning to lower, that physical touch carries an entirely different weight. It no longer serves as simple affection. It becomes a signal of presence, of emotional anchoring, of deep acceptance. Imagine he's telling you about something that happened years ago, something that still lingers quietly in the background of his mind. Maybe it's regret or failure or even a long-buried wound. As he speaks, he's not just relaying a story, he's letting you in. And if in that moment your hand gently reaches his or you place a calming touch on his back, you're sending a message that words can't quite deliver. That touch says, I'm right here, keep going, you're safe. It doesn't interrupt him. It doesn't try to fix him. It just supports him physically, emotionally, silently. This type of touch creates a feedback loop in the body. When we're vulnerable, the brain is scanning the environment for signs of safety or danger. A warm, reassuring touch from someone we trust immediately releases oxytocin and lowers cortisol, the stress hormone. That's not just comforting, it's biologically regulating. The nervous system reads that touch as reassurance, and in turn, it allows him to stay open a little longer. He doesn't shut down. He doesn't feel judged. He feels held. It's in these moments that love, real love, gets a chance to grow. Not through grand declarations, but through the kind of connection that says, I'm not afraid of your truth. You don't have to shrink it, hide it, or polish it for me. Touching someone gently while they're emotionally exposed is like telling their inner child, you're okay. You're not too much. That's something many men have never heard, even if they've longed to. And it's not just about when he's in pain. It also applies to moments when he's sharing something he's proud of, an accomplishment, an idea, a dream he's quietly nurturing. The world often teaches men to downplay their excitement unless it's tied to achievement or utility. But if you reach out and touch him, maybe a proud smile, your hand on his chest as he speaks, You're helping him associate emotional expression with connection, not isolation. He begins to feel that he doesn't have to filter his joy or vulnerability, that both have a place, that both are welcome. Over time, these gestures build a deeper bond. They create a rhythm in the relationship where moments of openness are not only safe, but also met with warmth, presence, and connection. You're not trying to lead the moment or take control of it. You're simply participating in it with him. And in doing so, you help make emotional vulnerability feel less like exposure and more like intimacy. This is how love deepens, through stillness, through touch that doesn't rush, doesn't require explanation. It's in the pauses between words, in the spaces where you say nothing, but your presence is felt fully. That's when trust grows. That's when connection roots itself deeper. That's when he begins to feel, not just intellectually, but physically, that you are someone he can be fully human with. There's something incredibly powerful about how the body remembers joy and how physical touch, when combined with that joy, becomes a marker, a kind of emotional imprint that lingers long after the moment has passed. When a man experiences a win, whether big or small, something shifts inside him. It might be a professional achievement, a personal milestone, or even just a breakthrough in his own mindset. In that moment, his internal world is full pride, adrenaline, dopamine, and the way you respond physically and emotionally shapes how that moment is stored in his memory. When you respond to his success with more than words, when you reach out and pull him into a hug that's just a little longer, when you squeeze his hand with excitement, when you touch his face with genuine pride, you're doing more than celebrating. You're building an association in his nervous system that says, when I succeed, love meets me here. That's something men rarely get. So often they're taught to achieve in isolation, to keep moving, to reach the next goal. But when your touch marks that victory, it tells him, you don't have to experience your wins alone. I'm here with you. This kind of touch becomes emotionally charged in the best way. It creates a physical reminder that success is not just external, it's relational. It's something that can be shared, multiplied, even deepened through connection. The body locks it in. That moment, that energy, that touch, it gets stored not just as achievement, but as intimacy. It might look like grabbing his shoulders and laughing with him after good news, or playfully pulling him in for a kiss when he finishes something he's been working on for weeks. Or maybe it's quieter, resting your head against his chest and just holding him for a few extra seconds when he's proud of himself. These moments don't need to be loud, they just need to be real. Because when your touch enters the moment of celebration, it confirms something deeply validating, that you're emotionally invested in his joy, not just his pain. And the impact of this goes further than just the moment itself. The next time he strives for something, there's a part of him, whether consciously or not, that remembers what it felt like to have you celebrate with him. The body remembers the warmth, the grounding, the affection. That memory becomes motivational. He begins to see his success not just as a solitary accomplishment, but as something that brings him closer to you. He's not just working for results anymore. He's working toward a shared emotional experience. And that's a profound shift. When physical touch becomes part of celebration, it also balances the emotional landscape of the relationship. It shows that love isn't only available when things are hard or when comfort is needed. It's present in the light, in the laughter, in the high points too. That balance matters. It teaches him that love isn't reactive, it's proactive. It shows up with joy, with enthusiasm, with pride. And that in turn encourages him to share more with you, to let you into the moments he might otherwise keep to himself. Because in the end, these moments, these quick, joyful touches might seem small, but they're building something big. They're reinforcing a pattern. Success doesn't have to be a lonely pursuit. Love lives here too. And when he begins to feel that truth in his body, through your consistent, affectionate responses, his concept of partnership expands. You're not just someone who supports him when he's down. You're someone who dances in the victory with him. And that's the kind of bond that doesn't just survive over time. It grows stronger with every shared triumph. There's a quiet kind of magic in the moments when a man feels safe enough to let go, to soften, to rest, not just physically, but emotionally. And often he won't announce that he needs it. He won't always say, I'm tired or I need comfort. Instead, it shows in subtle ways. The slump in his shoulders after a long day, the distant look in his eyes, the way he exhales a little longer than usual when he finally sits down. These are the moments when nurturing touch becomes incredibly powerful, when your hands, without saying a word, can tell him that he doesn't have to carry the weight alone anymore, running your fingers through his hair while he's lying next to you, placing your hands gently on his neck and shoulders, massaging the tension that's been sitting there for days, pulling him in close and holding him without expectation, without needing anything back in return. These actions go beyond affection. They are acts of restoration. Because the world demands so much from men, the pressure to perform, to lead, to be strong, to always have the answers. And in the middle of all that noise, your touch can be the one thing that tells him it's okay to pause. This kind of touch doesn't just feel good, it physically changes what's happening in his body. The release of oxytocin, the calming of the nervous system, the quieting of mental noise. His heart rate slows, his breathing deepens, the weight on his chest gets a little lighter. And even if he doesn't say it out loud, there's a part of him that deeply registers what's happening. I'm being cared for. I don't have to be in control right now. I'm allowed to just be. That allowance, giving him the space to rest without judgment, is a rare gift, and it's one that most men don't even know how much they need until they experience it. Because often, even in relationships, men can feel like they have to stay in performance mode. They think they have to be the protector, the provider, the steady one. But when you offer physical touch that expects nothing in return, that exists purely to comfort and soothe, it gives him permission to be human. You become a kind of sanctuary for him, a place where he can exhale fully, where he doesn't have to put on the emotional armor, where his body learns that closeness doesn't always lead to pressure. It can lead to peace. And over time, these moments build deep emotional trust, not just because of what you're doing, but because of what your touch represents. Unconditional presence. And the beauty is, it doesn't need to be dramatic. It can be you walking up behind him while he's sitting at the edge of the bed, wrapping your arms around him quietly. It can be tracing soft lines across his back while he's lying next to you in stillness. It can be gently holding his hand under the table while you eat dinner together, saying without words, "You're not alone in this." In those quiet moments, love becomes less about what you say and more about what you offer through your presence. The tenderness in your touch tells him that it's okay to relax, to let go, to be held. And when he realizes that your arms aren't just a place of passion, but also of peace, his whole relationship with you deepens. Not because you fixed him, not because you saved him, but because you saw his quiet need and you chose to meet it without asking for anything in return. There's something uniquely powerful about affection that's spontaneous, physical touch, that happens in the unplanned, quiet spaces between everything else. It's in those little, almost unnoticed moments that a deep emotional message is sent. You are chosen not out of habit or obligation, but because I want to be close to you right now. When you wrap your arms around a man from behind while he's focused on something else, when you reach for his hand during a random walk, or when you pull him in for a quick kiss without needing a reason, those actions speak louder than entire conversation. They say, "You're on my mind and I want to be near you." Unlike structured, expected forms of affection like a hug goodbye or a kiss goodnight, spontaneous touch catches him off guard in the best way. It breaks patterns. It interrupts the flow of ordinary life with a surge of warmth and connection. And that's precisely why it's so powerful. When physical touch arrives without a schedule, it feels more genuine, more real, more personal. There's no sense of obligation in it, no social cue being followed. It's just you, reaching for him in the middle of life's noise, saying with your body, "I'm thinking of you, I care about you, right now, this second." And while it might seem small, just a brush of your fingers through his hair while he's focused on something else, or resting your head on his shoulder while sitting in silence, Those moments become emotional anchors. His nervous system logs that information, almost like muscle memory. When she touches me like that, I feel valued, I feel calm, I feel loved. And even if he doesn't express it outwardly, there's a part of him, instinctual, childlike, deeply human, that begins to crave it. Not in a needy or dependent way, but in the way we all crave the feeling of being seen without asking for it. Spontaneous affection also dissolves emotional distance. It cuts through tension. It shifts the mood. If he's had a stressful day or is caught up in his head, a sudden warm touch can bring him back to the present moment, to you. It doesn't have to fix anything. It just has to be. And in that small moment of skin meeting skin, of your presence reaching out to his, something softens, something that may have been guarded starts to open. There's also a powerful emotional message woven into these gestures. You're safe with me. Because if you're reaching for him randomly, it means you're comfortable in the relationship. It means your affection is alive, unforced, and natural. And that gives him permission to respond in kind, to initiate, to soften, to reciprocate in his own way. It sets a tone, a rhythm, one where love isn't something you only express when the moment is right, but something you live inside of every day in all its little forms. Men, especially those who have been conditioned to be emotionally reserved, may not always realize how much they long for this kind of gentle, unpredictable closeness. But once they experience it, once your hand finds theirs under the table during a group dinner, or you kiss the back of their neck while they're brushing their teeth, it begins to shift something inside them. The relationship stops feeling like a script and starts feeling like a connection that breathes. And that's what spontaneous physical touch really offers: breath, life, presence. It keeps love alive in the in-between, in the unscheduled, in the unnoticed. It reminds him again and again that he matters, not just when you're making time for him, but in the middle of your ordinary moments too. And those are the touches he'll remember most, not because they were grand or dramatic, but because they came from nowhere and landed right in the center of his heart. There is something sacred that happens when two people slow down enough to truly be present with one another. In a world that's constantly moving, buzzing with notifications, filled with responsibilities and distractions, intentional physical closeness becomes a rare kind of intimacy. It's not rushed. It's not reactive. It's not performative. It's a conscious choice to say, in this moment, you have my full attention. I want to connect, not just with your body, but with your heart. And when a man experiences this level of presence through your touch, something deep inside him begins to shift. When you initiate closeness with intention, with patience, with softness, with presence, you're offering him more than affection. You're offering a space where he doesn't have to prove anything, perform anything, or be anyone other than exactly who he is. Whether it's lying together in silence, your hands tracing slow, thoughtful lines along his chest, or holding his face gently while maintaining eye contact without saying a word, these moments teach his body something new. They teach him that love doesn't always arrive with intensity. Sometimes it arrives with stillness, this kind of closeness, intentional, slow, emotionally grounded, activates more than hormones. It activates safety. It activates belonging. It's the difference between simply being touched and truly being felt. For a man, this can be transformative because many men are so used to carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders, to always being in motion, that they forget what it feels like to be still and still loved. And when you are the one who offers that space to him, when your touch says, you don't have to rush here, there's no performance, just be, it becomes something he doesn't just want, but needs. Your presence begins to feel like a sanctuary, a place where he can return to himself, a place where love is not loud, but deeply rooted, quiet, consistent, and powerful. Over time, this kind of connection becomes more than physical. It becomes spiritual. Your bodies speak their own language, one of trust, acceptance, tenderness. He learns that intimacy doesn't always require words or even action. Sometimes the most intimate thing you can do is just stay close, hold him with intention, and breathe together. That's when the heart opens. That's when the walls come down. That's when real love settles in and stays. And so It's not about the touch itself. It's about the energy behind it, the care, the presence, the emotional safety that's woven into your fingertips. Because when you touch a man with that kind of depth, with that kind of intentionality, you're not just reaching for his body, you're reaching for his soul. And when he feels that, truly feels it, love isn't just activated, it's awakened. So if you want to touch a man in a way that opens his heart, don't wait for the perfect moment. Create it, slow down, be present, let your hands speak when words fall short. Because in the end, it's not about how often you touch him, it's about how deeply. And when you make space for that kind of intimacy, you're not just creating connection, you're creating a home within yourself that he'll never want to leave.